Welcome to this podcast, and my name is Prof Muaaz Bhamjee. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Mechanical and Aeronautical Engineering in the Faculty of Engineering, Built Environment and Information Technology at the University of Pretoria. And in this podcast, I'm really going to be breaking down what it means to become certified as a professional engineer, or for short, Pr Eng. Engineering students undergo rigorous 4 years of training and education. And once they qualify, they are deemed competent to practice as candidate engineers. At least in the South African context, we call it a candidate engineer. And that is governed by the Engineering Council of South Africa. So upon graduation, your your graduated engineer would register as a candidate engineer. After that, they will undergo at least 3 years of post-graduation training via employment with an engineering firm. And in that training, they will try to prove competency against 11 outcomes that ECSA has stipulated. Those outcomes range from being able to solve complex engineering problems, showing that they have the ability to manage projects, people, finance, as well as to show that they are executing initial and continuous professional development. The last one is exceptionally important because with the ever-changing needs of the profession, engineers must show that they continuously are keeping up with the field and continuously upskilling. Now, one must ask, why do we need Pr Eng if we've already been deemed competent upon graduation? Engineering affects multiple layers of society, and it has the potential to positively impact the lives of individuals as well as the environment around them. But in the same regard, we also have a great responsibility to ensure that we do not harm society, people, or the environment. And through that, we have to exercise great legal duties. So while we have great sort of an exciting work that we do, we also have a huge legal and moral obligation. And the professional engineering certification is to show that an engineer is competent and that they're able to execute their work within that legal framework. And that gives you specific legal rights, but also legal duties and responsibilities. Now, again, this is highly important in terms of the engineering education space. We're finding increasingly there's a requirement upon lecturers to become professionally registered, as well as a great drive for that. So why is Pr Eng important to the engineering educator? The engineering educator takes on a great responsibility to educate and develop the skills in new generations of engineering students and engineering graduates. And for that to happen and to ensure that we train these graduates to later become Pr Eng, we ourselves must understand and know what that means. So therefore, the Engineering Council of South Africa has started to insist, and rightfully so, that engineering educators become Pr Eng. I myself underwent that specific process earlier last year, where I started to apply for my Pr Eng, and I documented my work over the years through my various roles, both in academia and in industry. And I documented thoroughly my abilities and my competencies against those 11 outcomes. And interestingly, those 11 outcomes very closely to some degree match the graduate attributes that a graduating engineer would have to meet and show competency for to obtain their engineering degree. Now, back to why is it important for engineering educators? If I am trying to convince my students of the legal role and responsibility that they must exercise, and to also convince them why it's important for them to become Pr Eng, it really does seem intuitive for me to be Pr Eng. And having done that exercise just last year, I've become a lot more aware and a lot more conscious of my responsibility as an engineering educator towards my students. And in that regard, that exercise had a profound impact on me and my career. Moving forward, I must admit that the University of Pretoria has shown great initiative and great progress in that aspect. Recent statistics show that the engineering faculty, at least within the School of Engineering, we have about a 61% Pr Eng rate, meaning 61% of our engineering educators are fully registered with the Engineering Council of South Africa as professional engineers within their discipline. Furthermore, there are specific departments that go as high as 75%. The department that I work in, which is the Department of Mechanical and Aeronautical Engineering, also sits about at 61%. And that is impressive. And there's a great drive to take that all the way to 100%. So if you send your child, or if you come to study at the University of Pretoria, you know that you're getting a quality engineering education governed by the highest standards that the Engineering Council of South Africa has set, and that they will be, and that you or your children will be educated by a large cohort of professionally registered engineers within that discipline. Again, to emphasize why is this important, once we gain our PrEng status, we are obligated to abide by the Engineering Council of South Africa's Code of Conduct. We also must execute our work to the best of standards, and we must preserve the integrity of the profession. There's a really critical component, which is to exercise one's skills within your range of competency. That means to stick within your discipline. For example, I, as a mechanical engineer, am qualified to analyze certain structural loads and stresses and strains and the behavior of certain structural members. However, that does not deem me competent to go and design, for example, a bridge or building. That would be arguably a derelict of duty, or in fact, a negligent act. And that is what the Engineering Council of South Africa is trying to ensure engineers stick to, which is to practice ethically. Why do I know how to analyze structural members? As a mechanical engineer, I will often design equipment or machinery that have smaller scale, or even at times large scale, structural elements or machine components that will have certain structural like behavior. And therefore I must be able to I must be competent to analyze the behavior of those components and to ensure that they do not fail, so that again, I am practicing ethically. Now, again, having this in-depth understanding comes with years of experience, and those years of experience imbues you with competency. Now, I will ask, many engineers would have that competency and not necessarily apply for their PrEng. And that is actually sort of, for the lack of a better word, or to use colloquial terms, shortchanging themselves, and to a large extent also robbing the profession and society of those skills. So it is important for engineers who have those competencies to apply for their PrEng. It also affords you a great opportunity to reflect on your skills, to see where have you really excelled, and also to a certain degree, where can you improve. And that was a great experience for me to do that. And over that time, when I filled out my application and I went through my professional interview, I really realized just how far I've come in my career. And it actually left me, one, extremely confident in my abilities, but also very cautious to know where those limits lie, and to ensure that I now practice always within those limits and those confines. Now, the other aspect, which is really interesting, is that does not say I cannot work in spheres where engineering or mechanical engineering goes outside of the bounds to a certain degree of mechanical engineering. For example, I work in areas at the intersection of high energy physics and mechanical engineering, or at the intersection of biomedical or medical practice and mechanical engineering. However, it does demand that I do not extend myself beyond that scope. For example, if I'm working on a project where we are designing certain medical devices that requires the skill set of a mechanical engineer, I do not do so without working closely with medical professionals and other required disciplines, because I cannot do so ethically without ensuring that I leverage those skills and ensure that I am keeping myself within my sphere of competency. And I hope that I've convinced engineering educators who are on that journey to PrEng to finally take that step towards applying for their PrEng. And I hope in doing so, you will make today matter.